Welcome to the Home Health Minute, your monthly podcast brought to you by the Home Health section of the American Physical Therapy Association. Hosted by Troy Mead. Hello and welcome to the Home Health Minute. In today's world, it's difficult to keep up with best practices and resources that help improve our practice and bring value to the care that we provide. The Home Health section and its members are dedicated to making this easier by developing useful resources for the clinician, as well as prepare those coming into or new to the setting. Today I sit down with Kim Miller of the Practice Committee to discuss these current and upcoming resources. I really hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Well, Ken, welcome and thank you for joining me today. For those of you who may not know, tell us a little bit about your role with the section.
So my current role is Practice Committee Chair for the Home Health section. I'm also involved in other areas of the APTA, but for this podcast, we'll talk about the Home Health section. And as chair of the practice committee, my role is to help lead and facilitate the practice committee and other work groups to create resources to try to help improve practice of physical therapy in the home health setting.
So one of the reasons I brought talking about some of the resources that we have coming out of the section, I see a lot of different ones coming up. Like I saw, there's an incontinence toolbox that just came out not too long ago, and then a couple months later, there's a sleep toolbox. Can you tell us a little bit about what these toolboxes are for and why it's exciting?
So we've been creating resources since the practice committee was first formed, and now I'm not sure exactly which year we first formed, but when we first formed, Dee Cornetti and I were co-chairs of the practice committee, and at that point we formed the committee in order to provide resources to better practice. So more recently, the two most recent tools to come out are the incontinence toolbox and the sleep resource. And both of these resources were developed out of the need for improving practice of these two conditions by physical therapists in the home. There's no better practice setting than the home to work with somebody on how to improve their sleep quality and to try to help them identify issues that may impact their sleep. In their home, it's their bed, it's their environment, it's them looking at their cell phone just before they go to sleep, maybe disrupting their ability to go to sleep. So Katie Singh-Sakona and I reached out to her because she's a sleep expert to see if she would want to build a resource with her content knowledge to build for the home health clinician. And I added my part on my pharmacology knowledge and looking at medications that impact sleep either positively or negatively. And so we worked together for over a year or so to develop this resource that was just published in order for clinicians to have a tangible resource of a checklist, so to speak, with a decision tree of how to assess and provide interventions for people that are having sleep disorders. And so far it's been well received. And I think it's the first tool of its kind to really look at sleep quality in the home. As far as the incontinence toolkit, this was developed with Sarah Haig and Jamie Lowy and myself. We created this resource, and it's been released now a few months. It has also received good feedback and many downloads at the section website. And the purpose of this toolkit was to really identify patients that we already know are incontinent, but try to have a resource of non-pharmacological approach to see how can we help reduce the risk of them falling, besides telling them to just do Kegels, or besides telling them to just keep the commode next to the bed. How do we really impact their ability to function safely in their home and try to minimize them rushing to and from the bathroom and try to improve their quality of life along the way? So Sarah and Jamie are Sarah's a pelvic health expert. She treats incontinence for men and women and has done so in her own private practice for quite a while. And so I reached out to her from a session 2 years ago at the National Association of Home Care and Hospice. I attended one of her sessions on incontinence. So I reached out to her and also to Jamie and said, what can we put together to help the rank and file clinician address incontinence in the home? And so that was also a very time-consuming but a worthwhile project to put together non-pharmacological interventions of looking at triggers that could bring on urgency, looking at timing of when we drink our liquids, looking at different aspects of incontinence about how can we actually impact a person's incontinence. And there are many types of incontinence. There's urge incontinence, stress incontinence. So we wanted to look at creating a resource that really addressed incontinence from a holistic approach and looking at the medications that could impact incontinence to make it worse, which for many of our home care patients that have heart failure, they're on medications that will worsen incontinence, such as the diuretics, which are going to make them have to urinate more frequently and more often, through the night, nocturia and polyuria and that sense of urgency. So we looked at how can we impact incontinence from a holistic approach, meaning what can we do related to their foods? What can we do related to their medications? What can we do related to their physical condition and activity to try to minimize the incontinence symptoms and really improve their quality of life? So both of these resources, the sleep and incontinence resource, are all about improving quality of life. And we know people that don't sleep well have more difficult time functioning during the day. And we know that people that have incontinence self-limit their activities, some of which will move on to creating disuse atrophy and just make the condition even more of a challenge. So we really wanted to look at how can we change practice to impact these two big quality of life conditions.
So it sounds like there's been a lot of work goes into developing these. So with that said, are there any new toolboxes that are being developed right now that are on the horizons that we should look out for?
So the next biggest project that we have is we're updating the toolbox that we have of objective tests and measures that we created and released back in 2013. And really with the changes in practice over the last few years, we're really looking at the measures that are predictive. We're looking at measures that can tell us discharge disposition. We're looking at measures that are able to identify frailty and able to identify people that are pre-frail. And you're part of this project as well, so you could certainly share your insight on the newest toolbox. But the purpose of the toolbox is not only to provide a list of the measures, but move us beyond capturing data, but actually making the data actionable and using the data to the most of its worth to try to really impact and change the trajectory of our older population moving towards frailty. And see, where can we improve quality of life? Where can we get patients to be more active and identify those that are most in need? We have the silver tsunami with all these older people reaching Medicare age. More and more older adults will be treating. And so we need to be better at triaging out who we need to treat and who we can refer out to other disciplines outside of our therapy profession for physical activity that we don't necessarily need to be with these patients. So being able to identify impairment groups, weakness or strength, power, balance, cognitive issues, sleep issues, pain issues, being able to identify out these things with appropriate tests and measures is really what the goal of our group is. And we have over 20 people working on this project. We already have been working on this project for about a year, give or take. So it's a long endeavor. The anticipated release for the whole toolkit will be January of 2019 to be available ahead of CSM. And so that's our goal. Hopefully we'll have it done a little shy of that goal, but that is our goal. And I think we're realistic to have that released. I think it'll be a game changer in our industry, not only the home health the home health practice setting, but for physical therapy as a broader scope, for the fact that it will be looking at measures in a way that other people are not looking at measures currently in PT practice.
I definitely agree with you that it's going to be a game changer. I might be a little biased since I'm working on the project there too. But so as this new toolbox comes out and some of the other toolbox, where can we go to look to find these at on the home health section website?
Yeah, so if you go to the home health section website, homehealthsection.org, if you're not a member, you still have access to most of the resources. There are some member-only resources as well. And when the resources are available to non-members for a nominal fee of, I think it's like $5. Some of the tools are very inexpensive, but the tools are available on the website, some of which are available on the practice. If you go to the homepage, on the homepage, you'll see the words practice. Click on that tab, and then you'll see a drop-down menu that has resources, another link to click on, and that'll bring you to some of our tools. The more recent tools, the incontinence toolbox and the sleep, those are available on the section store. Don't be afraid because it says the store and you have to purchase it. They are freely available to the public. The idea of having them available through the store is just so that we could track how many downloads are being done for the resource. So we just want to try to keep track of how many people are downloading and hopefully utilizing the tool.
So I know I've looked at both the sleep and the incontinence toolbox, and both of those are great resources that I think that I know personally that's helped impact my practice. So I think they're really great tools, and they were really needed at this time. So with all the tools that are coming out that are investing in practice and investing in the home health clinician, are there any new programs coming out for like students or institutions that are looking to improve how they prepare students for home health?
So that's a really good question. A few years ago, we developed a student program roadmap and toolkit with the intent of creating a resource that was available to academicians to try to get connections to home health agencies and help them develop student programs. It was also created for the agencies to have model policies and have a checklist as well as a timeline of how do I develop a student program, and also to provide information as a selling point of why would I want to invest resources in developing a program. And then ultimately, and most importantly for the student, to have a structured rotation that's a one-to-one practice setting with their clinical instructor so that the student has a valuable experience with their clinical instructor or CI, and have a timeline for them for learning, to go over all of the different components of what a clinical rotation needs to be, but have it in a way that it's structured for the student to gain the most out of that experience. When we developed this resource, we did approach the education section as well as ACAPT, the Academic Council for Education, and we reviewed our resources with them, and they did look them over, provided feedback on their resources as well. We presented this at CSM a couple of years back. We also presented at the ELC conference a couple of years ago. And so the student roadmap has been well received. In my own organization, we now have 5 student contracts. And we didn't have any when I first started in my role in my full-time position. But having that resource helped to pave the way to develop a program. And now we've been using that to grow our program. And really the big benefit for academia is the fact that they now have another whole practice setting for which to place their students. And to me personally, and I am biased, I work in the home health setting, but for me to have that practice setting available to students is most critical for our profession, considering that SNF census is dropping, hospital census are dropping, and the fact that they're looking to get patients out of the hospital to the home for their care and to remain home in their care. That's the setting that we need to be training our students. And so to have this resource is very timely to help cultivate that to happen.
Yeah, I agree. Not that home health wasn't the setting of choice before, but it's becoming more and more the setting of choice for our patients as well as healthcare in general. I think the quicker we can bring in more quality students and clinicians, I think home health in general is just going to benefit. Well, we've covered a lot of tools and resources already. Is there anything that we missed that you know of?
So there's just 2 more things I'd like to talk about quickly. One is, as a result of the student program that we developed, the next evolution was to develop a new graduate mentorship program, because we saw the need for organizations to be able to onboard a new graduate as a first hire for that practice setting. And so we developed a new graduate mentorship program in order to help students that were graduating that wanted to work in the home health setting to be able to know what they should look for. We also wanted to help home health agencies to know what kind of candidate would be appropriate to hire as a new graduate, knowing that there are certain character traits that would be more desirable for someone to work in the home health setting, and some of which the desirable traits would be someone that is autonomous, someone that is well organized, someone that's able to work on their own, someone that's very good at communicating. So it could be, because of the home health practice setting is one where the individual works a lot of times on their own, we wanted to make sure that we hired the people that had the right tools. Some clinicians thrive in a more communal type setting, in a gym type atmosphere, and we didn't want to hire someone that would be more appropriate for that setting and set them up for failure. So we put together resources of what you would look for in a candidate, and then what would be the onboarding for a new graduate, which would be a little bit more lengthy than hiring someone that has experience already. And so we wanted to just put that on paper and put that in place to try to help the agency when they decided to go the route of onboarding a new graduate. And then the last tool I want to mention, it's not even an item that has been approved yet by the executive committee, but at CSM this past year and last month, 2 months ago now in New Orleans, we had our new graduate mentorship program session at CSM. And a couple of the colleagues in the session, participants in the session, started to talk about, well, what's next? And started talking about clinical ladders and other things in order to retain staff that you've hired. And so that's our next project, is we're hoping to get approval from the executive committee, develop a clinical ladder type program in order to have that for organizations to look at and try to model after, so that we could facilitate lifelong learning, facilitate best practices, and facilitate continual education and maintain CEUs, but in a way that's structured so that we could try to help improve our retaining of our staff, which in my agency, we do have a very high retention rate, which is wonderful, but it would be nice to be able to not only retain them, but to provide them with tools that might bump our retention numbers up a little higher, but provide them the tools that they can practice at the top of their life. So look forward to that. We'll be looking to get members that want to join that work group. Once, hopefully it'll be approved by the executive committee, but we'll be looking to get members, section members, to help work with that resource. So if anyone's interested in that, please feel free to reach out to me. I am available. You can find my information on the Home Health Section website, and there's a few other ways. If you Google me, you'll be able to find me.
There are 2 other resources I want to mention, one of which is for therapists working in the home environment to help with patients suffering with chronic pain. The other is a resource to help therapists working in the home for patients that have mental health disorders and challenges, cognitive impairment, depression, anxiety, delirium, dementia. And these resources will be available hopefully before the next conference this coming June of 2018. So please look out for those 2 resources to be available soon to help improve practice in the home environment.
We talked about a lot today, and there's a lot to unpack. I think in the future, I'm going to have to highlight each one of these programs and toolboxes that are going to come out in their own individual podcast, because there's so much information and there's so much time that's been invested in each one of these. I want to thank you, Ken, for taking time to talk with me, and I also want to thank you for all the hard work that you're doing.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm glad to be able to help the section and help membership and really help to drive practice to ultimately provide the best care for our patients. So I appreciate your time today and asking me to join you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Home Health Minute, the podcast from the Home Health section of the American Physical Therapy Association. Check out our website at www.homehealthsection.org. There you can find links to this episode, tons of helpful resources for your practice, and how to connect with us on social media. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.